Welcome to the Wired for Success podcast, your show for ambitious, mission-driven entrepreneurs who want to build million-dollar businesses without sacrificing their health, relationships, or happiness, who understand that in order to build their empire, they need a solid foundation, and that the more they are thriving, the more their business is thriving too. This show brings you the very best from science, self-development, and entrepreneurship to set you up for sustainable success. Hi, I'm Claudia Garbutt, the scientist turned mindset and high performance coach for entrepreneurs, and I help you get wired for success. Hey everyone, and welcome back to a brand new episode of the Wired for Success podcast, where we talk about all things science, self-development, and entrepreneurship that help you get to that next level of success in your life and business. Today, I'm delighted to bring you a new Leaders or Readers Wired for Success book club episode, where I invite nonfiction authors to discuss their latest books from the science, self-development, and entrepreneurship categories. The author I invited today is Noel Massie, the former vice president of UPS's U.S. operations from 2016 to 2019. Noel is also a sought-after speaker and the author of Congrats, You've Been Promoted, an essential guide for helping new leaders and their teams succeed, which we will be talking about today. Welcome, Noel, and thank you so much for being on my show today.
Hey, Claudia, thank you for having me. I look forward to having a discussion today that hopefully can help your listeners learn a few things about what they would like to accomplish.
Absolutely. Noel, let's start by giving people a little bit of background and context. What's your story and how did you end up doing what you're doing today?
I worked for UPS for over 40 years, and I started with the organization as a college student, electrical engineering college student. Getting a position to pay for my education, bottom line. And so I, as a UPS college student employee, because that was really where UPS farmed its talent, was out of colleges. And generally they would be community colleges, state colleges, not the Ivy League type schools. That was not the sweet spot. So I was hired. And after a few months with the organization, I became a part-time supervisor because we had night loaders and day loaders, and they only worked 4 or 5 hours a day. So I did that for about 3 years. And as I was about to graduate from college, I was offered a position by Hewlett Packard, actually. But UPS asked me to stay. And it was the best decision I've ever made. I loved what I did for a career. That's why I did it for as long as I did, candidly. And after becoming promoted at UPS in the early 80s, I went on to greater responsibilities in the organization, ultimately leading to 1997 when I became a president. And I had 5 business units that I navigated and led as a president in my career, ultimately becoming vice president of U.S. operations in 2016. And again, it was a position that I really enjoyed. And, you know, I know your audience are entrepreneurs. And one of the great things about what I did for the last 27 years of my career is I would meet with 100 to 180 small business owners annually to talk about their business. So I've seen just about every business model there is when you talk about an entrepreneur endeavor. I've seen a lot, candidly.
Thank you so much for sharing your story. I'm curious, how has leadership changed from when you first started at UPS to now? Are we expecting more or less of our leaders these days?
Far more. There's no question. Leaders are expected to do a lot of things differently than when I was first starting in the organization. And the societal changes, particularly social media, has had a dramatic impact on leaders in small businesses or Fortune 500 companies. It really doesn't matter. Visibility has changed. And what's also changed are expectations of people. You know, when I was hired back in the early 80s, you got orders, you just did what you were told, you didn't question much. What was important to you was keeping the job. Not so much today. You know, it's a different environment. Leaders are under scrutiny constantly. And again, as I mentioned, whether it's a small business owner with a cafe or a Fortune 500 CEO running an organization like Siemens, right? A great organization in Germany. What you do is always being evaluated. There are no casual moments in leadership, period. And I talk about that very distinctly in my book, not just for the new leader, but for the leader, period. Is that scrutiny drives culture, drives outcomes, drives so many things. And today it's at a very high level. And then you add to it the expectations of young people today is very different. They can move from place to place to place pretty easily, and back in the times, if you go back 30, 40 years, that wasn't the case. That just wasn't the case. You weren't going to just leave a job and get a new one in a minute. And today they can. So the choices they have are greater. And at the end of the day, an organization should always want people that they've invested in to choose them, right? To keep choosing them every day. And so that organization has to give those individuals who are really their most important asset a reason to choose them every day.
Yeah, that sounds really tough and exhausting for the leader with all the scrutiny and the high expectations. So what can they do to avoid burnout? Because that's something that a lot of leaders struggle with, right?
Well, yeah, that's the one thing that every person gets to control, and it's not even a question. It's actually a natural law, and it's irrefutable. It's inarguable. The one thing every person gets to control, no matter who they are every day, are their own actions. Period. They don't get to assign their personal behavior to anyone but themselves. So, having said that, when people tend to go so far where they're working nonstop, 24/7, however you want to look at it, what they don't understand the most is that's not a healthy way to lead. That's not a healthy way to live. It's just not. You're not your best you. And so that should be relatable to most people. I did that early in my career. And I learned later in my career that when I felt the best, when I had the clearest head, is when I was the most rested. And when I had some meditative time in my life, right? So you have to create a space. It's no different than people go to gyms and work out, and they go to gym, work out, run to work, go home, kids, things are going out, emails are coming at them, left and right, but they don't recognize, and this is one of the important points, how detrimental that can be to their output, to what they actually produce as a human being. And the goal daily for any business owner or leader is to produce a successful day, right? One successful day, second successful is to produce as many successful days as possible. I'm a strong advocate of a book written by an individual named Stephen Covey. And he's widely known, widely published. And he wrote a book called The 7 Habits of Effective People. And I read that book some 30 years ago, more than 30 years ago. And 1991 is when I read it. And I can seriously say I believe in it. I lived it. It makes sense to me. And so one of the important habits is sharpen the saw, right? Here's a habit. That's like habit 7, actually, sharpen the saw. So I would say to any entrepreneur or any business owner, sharpen your saw. What does that even mean? It means that you take time to control your own behavior on a daily basis, and you take time to think, meditate. You have an hour a day for you. You have an hour a day for you. End of story. There may be a day or two where you don't get that, but in general, you have an hour a day to have contemplative downtime, right? Where there's not a lot of people coming at you. It's really important. It will make you better. That's really the bottom line. It's not, I'm not saying this for any kind of holistic reason. I'm saying it because it will make you better at being you. It just will.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that health is not a luxury. It's the basis for doing your best work. So every entrepreneur should really focus on being their best self and looking after themselves. And I think that's something that so many people struggle with. So you already mentioned that you personally, you meditate. Can you maybe share some more of your high performance habits or the things and routines that keep you healthy?
I'm a firm believer in constant learning.
Mm-hmm.
How you learn is a whole nother thing. But I believe that every day, if possible, learn something you didn't know, right? They're not the traditional kind of things. I mean, if you're a financial analyst and every day you read financial analyst stuff, that's not really, you're going to learn something from that, but that's not really where I'm coming from. I'm talking about things that aren't necessarily in your window pane every day, and I'm an avid listener of podcasts. I move around. I don't stick to any one particular podcast host. I am really about reading on a regular basis. I read a lot of magazines that, like the Harvard Business Review or just Discovery or whatever. But I'm always looking for articles that look interesting to me. Mm-hmm. And I can honestly say that not a day goes by where I don't spend some time outside of my specialty, which right now is being an author. And, I sit on 4 nonprofit boards. But I spend time learning. So learning is really important. There's no such thing as bad learning, right? It just doesn't exist. There's no such thing as bad learning. Because when people expand their horizon by looking at thoughts that others have on topics, particularly historical reference, I love listening to a podcast by the podcaster named Malcolm Gladwell. He does a podcast called Revisionist History. I love that podcast. It's my favorite, right? And there's all these topics of things that were hidden in history that people don't typically would never hear about, and they were very interesting stories that in some way impacted the world we live in today. So I would say constant learning, reading is an important part of that. There's so much content out there on podcasts, but let me just say this. Today, if you look at screen time, one of the things that I'm very conscious of is screen time, right? I was in an airport recently, and you can learn looking at your phone. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying you can't, but I was in an airport recently, and I counted the amount of people. There had to be 60 people in the waiting area to catch this flight. I counted the amount of people that weren't looking down at their phone. There were 3. There were 3.
Oh, yeah.
There were 3, right? And so that goes to strike up a conversation. Meet someone you don't know. You can do that from anywhere you're stationary in an airport. It really doesn't matter. Some of the best things I've ever learned have come from people that I ran into in a situation like that. As a matter of fact, and I'm not talking about financial advice or something. As a matter of fact, one of the most important things I ever heard. I was on a flight some 20 years ago, even longer, maybe 25. And I was flying to New York from California, and I was sitting next to a gentleman who was a professor at Rutgers, right? And he said, and we were talking about a number of things, and we went to kids. I have 2 sons. Today they're 32 and 30. My wife and I, we've been married for 35 years. And so my children at that time were 25 years ago, so 7 and 5 or something like that. And he said, Noel, he says, let me just give you this piece of advice. I have 2 kinds of students. Those who have traveled internationally and those who have not.
Oh, yeah.
He says, so any opportunity that you can get your children to leave the United States when they're young and impressionable, do it. And I'll tell you right now, my 2 sons have traveled Europe. They've been in India, and they did that as teens. On mission trips and nonprofit type stuff, and it has changed who they are as young adults. They are very highly principled and very highly valued, and I believe those experiences played at least a significant part in it. So I know that was a lot, but hopefully your listeners got at least 1 or 2 ideas from that.
I bet they did. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. Now, in your opinion, what sets a good leader apart from a bad one?
Well, okay, that's a big question.
I know, right?
I mean, the easiest thing in the world to do is care about no one but yourself. That's just easy, right? Wake up in the morning. What's the most important thing? What's the first thing you think about? If you're a leader, if the first thing you think about are your profits, if the first thing you think about are you and your needs, and that includes the natural thing you're going to think about, and this is fair. This isn't a negative, is your family, right? But what do you think about when you wake up? And if you don't think about developing your team, you're not doing it. Okay. Just to be clear, is that at some point as a leader, what has to be most important to you are all of the people you lead or that work in your business. You're the leader. In that case, even more so than the CEO of a Fortune 500 company, candidly. How are you thinking about developing the team? That's a responsibility that most leaders fail. They fail that test. But it's the most important test because you build an organization, even if it's 5 people. It's you and 5 people. You're building an organization, which means you're building a culture. And the purpose of that culture should be to help the business succeed. End of story. It's about that. You didn't go into the endeavor to fail. No one does that. You went in to succeed. And success comes from the outcomes of the individuals in your organization. They become more successful. Try to keep this linear. They become more successful when you invest in them. That's how that works. Yet when I would talk to leaders and say, okay, write down, and I've done this recently with a couple of CEOs. I'd say, write down for me the people that you rely on the most to help you lead this organization. They write a list, 4 or 5 people, whatever it is. Okay, now write down next to each person's name what you currently are working with them on in a development capacity, delivering feedback, conflict resolution, setting the tone daily on values. Tell me what you're doing, not what you told them to go do. What are you doing to be their coach? How are you coaching them? I said, because even Michael Jordan had a coach. Okay, at the end of the day, Wayne Gretzky had a coach. Great athletes have coaches. Why? Because you're never so great, you don't need one. And most 99% of the time they fail on that. Okay.
Yeah.
99, and I go, well, okay, so why do you hope to get more out than you're putting in? And I asked that question. And I'm not being harsh because I heard a quote once in my early 30s, from the founder of the organization I work for, UPS, that just resonated for me. And it became a pillar of the way I view many, many things. And his name was James E. Casey. And he founded UPS in 1907. And he was a very principled leader. As a matter of fact, the principles in the organization, the bedrock of the organization, came from his leadership. And they were integrity, ethics, and valuing those who were helping you accomplish your goals as a business owner. And so I lived that. And what he said, Claudia, is this simple thing. And it's a really important paradigm. You can't hope to get more than you give. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But people do. Walk into a bank and say, hey, I'd like to make a withdrawal. And they go, sure. What's your account number? You go, well, I don't have one. I just want some money. They're going to go, well, unless you make a deposit, there is no withdrawal. Uh-huh. People are the same way. Unless you make a deposit, don't expect to go and make withdrawals. But people do. And it's a mistake. You can't hope to get more than you give. And the way that you give is you develop your team. You go, well, I'm going to work with Joe. He's impatient. He's short-tempered. We need to work on that. Okay, I'm going to work with Sarah. Okay, her organizational skills are lacking a little bit. We're going to work on that. And then what that looks like is when I would drive in to the office, and I had a staff. Listen, I'm not embellishing this. I had 30,000 people. I had a staff that was 40 people. And every day I had a name. And on my way in, I would get on the phone because, I'm driving to work. Car phone. I'd set it up and say, I'm going to call you at 8 o'clock, 8:30, 7:30, 7 a.m., whatever, while I'm driving in. And then we would just talk. And I'd say, hey, Claudia, good morning. So what do you want to talk about? This is about you. These 30 minutes are not about me. Okay. Mm-hmm. Right. Okay. So one of the things you and I agreed on is you wanted to get better at X. So how do you think you did getting better at X last week? There was never a time where that didn't matter to that person. Not one time. And there was never a time where they didn't get better in that one thing. So I would say to the entrepreneur, you need to think about how your team can use your skills to get better at something. And that works in reverse, candidly, because as you make them better, you know what happens to you? You get better. That's important. Yeah. That's important.
I love that you called people and held them accountable to the goals that they set themselves. So I think that's really, really important for the people you work with. So it sounds like a good leader has to be a good coach, but not everyone is, right? So do you think good leaders are born or are they built? What are the qualities that can't be taught and which ones absolutely must be trained?
I believe that anyone can be taught to be a good leader. I don't know that anyone can be taught to be a great leader. Those are different things, okay? You know, there's certainly a level of leadership base. There's a base. And the base, and one of the most important things as I wrote the book, Congrats, You've Been Promoted, was to do exactly that anyone can be a good leader, right? A good leader is someone that's ethical all the time. Because what are ethics? Ethics are honorable conduct towards others. That's what ethics reflect. Honorable conduct towards others. It's a simple statement. Is your behavior honorable when dealing with other people, right? Are you not looking to deceive or take advantage of others? And when you don't look to take advantage or deceive others, then you are ethical. And I tell a bunch of stories about people that weren't, candidly, in the book, and I give examples. But ethics is a base behavior, a value-based behavior that anyone should have and display, and it should be intentionally communicated to the team. Integrity, same thing. You know, integrity involves you, right? You know, and too often, you know, leaders will go, well, I have integrity. Okay, what is that? That's being truthful. That's being honest and keeping your word. That's not giving false representation. That's integrity, but that involves you, how you behave. When ethics, the minute you're unethical, it means you've included other people. That's what the difference between those two behaviors really are, is that ethics involves including other people. Integrity is you, right? But the problem with a lot of leaders is they don't understand intentionality around that. So when you teach leaders base values, how to reflect strong integrity, ethics, how to reflect fairness, you're giving them a base, right? You know, that doesn't involve this big, elegant, creative strategy, which, you know, when you're a great leader, you're going to get involved in some very big strategic things. Those are the separators. But when you talk about basic leadership, a good leader can be created, no question. You can take the most timid person who needs confidence elevated. You can help them, I've seen it and done it many times, elevate their confidence, right? They're an introvert. They don't need to be an extrovert, but you can elevate their confidence where they become effective at leading a group, you know, might be a small group and then they grow to gradual to a bigger group. But, you know, great leadership is a lot of that is just different. You know, some of those things are innate skills you've developed over your life period, right? Not in some, you know, workshop or some, you know, classroom type environment. You know, the fact of the matter is there are certain requirements leaders have to fulfill. And one of them is they can't be very bashful, right? They have to be willing to represent their organization and talk to their people in a way that is intentional. And I mentioned that earlier. Intentional leadership can be taught. To land the plane on that question. Intentional leadership can be taught. And when you have intentionality, it shows up. So, for instance, a lot of businesses get in trouble because their people do something that's not okay. It's not ethical. You know, it's not with integrity. It's not fair. Okay, well, that's because the leader didn't walk in and say, in everything we do, we're going to be ethical. If it's not right, we're not doing it. We're not doing it. If it's not right, if there's a benefit of the doubt, it goes to the customer or to the employee. Okay, so that's important in our business. We are value-based. We're a value-based organization. We have integrity. We will be ethical. We will be fair. When the leader is intentional and they say that not in one meeting, but in every interaction they have, they infer and put in their language, these are our values. Those become the values of the organization. They just do. They just do. People are going to follow the lead of the leader. That's why it's called that. So, it's like the song Sting made, the famous song, I'll be watching you. Every move you make, every step you take, I'll be watching you. When you're the leader, every move you make, every step you take, your people are watching you.
Yeah, so true. Now, what was the moment, idea, or maybe conversation that sparked the idea to turn your leadership experience into this book?
When I was about to retire, actually the idea for this book came to me around 10, 12 years ago. And, and that was born out of a deficiency I saw. And the deficiency I saw at the time in the mid 2010s was training and development budgets were being slashed left and right. In my organization, we always kept some, but we cut it in half. Okay. So were we taking young leaders, the 25-year-old, 26-year-old, in the beginning of their journey, and giving them a foundation to be successful from? And we had lessened it. And when I was talking to my peers in other organizations that were general managers or presidents, they were repeating the same thing. And this was at a time when there was a major tipping point transition in the workplace of baby boomers leaving, millennials ascending to leadership positions, and Gen Z behind them working on the front line. And the amount of turnover we were experiencing was significant. And the reason people were turning over is because they were derailing. The complexity of the position was getting to them, because it's not easy. One day you're driving a forklift and you're 26, and we love your enthusiasm, your reliability. You work hard, you go the extra mile every time we ask. And then the next day we go, we're going to make you the leader of the forklift drivers. And so now you go from driving the forklift crew of 12, being a member, to leading them. And which, I never advocate giving someone the people they worked with to lead. That's always a mistake, candidly. That fails more often than it works. Now, sometimes it works, but it fails more often than it does. That having said that, the person gets promoted and they're 26, 27. And they have someone working for them that's 40, 50, 60. And, they're intimidated. The person comes at them hot with a paycheck issue. Something's wrong with my check. I want it fixed. I want it fixed now. Well, my book gives the new leader a structural approach to create a win-win outcome in that moment, in that hot moment. What do I do? Because it's like driving down the road, and you see an obstacle, something flies out, and you veer, right? You react, and you don't, because you were taught how to drive a car, so you react. Well, my book does the same thing. It teaches them in that moment when something's flying across the road, how to handle that and how to do it, where they maintain their self-esteem, their confidence, and more importantly, a relationship with that person, how to de-escalate that and turn it into a positive outcome. So the book is in two parts. In part one of the book, I talk about the importance of the value equation, things I've already discussed: integrity, ethics, fairness, trust. Part two of the book, and what I've learned about all of those dimensions, and part two of the book is skill-based. It's like, how do I handle a conflicting situation? How do I train a newly hired employee? How do I address my team daily? How should I? So the second part of the book is all the how-to stuff with exercises for the person to complete in order to be able to train and get experience on a daily basis using these skills and techniques that I actually learned over 30 years ago, and they work, and they're very effective. And so that's how the book is sized up, is it gives a person something to work on, right, to get better at in a skill-based way in part two of the book.
That sounds great. It sounds like the first part is all about strategy, and the second part is all the tactics you actually need, everything you need to do or work on, so that you can handle all those tough situations.
Yeah. Well, I want to say to the first part, and I want to give a little bit sounder component on that. The first part is about the importance of intentional, value-based leadership, the importance of that, and how that turns into a culture where people will follow you as a leader because they have no doubt of your integrity and intentions around them, right? So it's reinforcing that if you don't have intentional, value-based daily conversation, you're not going to create a culture that supports a group of loyal employees. It's just not going to happen. Okay, so I wanted to give a stronger kind of perspective on part one.
So it sounds like the first thing you have to do as a new leader is establish trust with your team. Is that correct? Or
you can't establish trust on day one with a team. You know what? Day one with a team, you can tell them we're going to have integrity in everything we do. You can say to them intentionally, and we're going to be ethical. You can say, I'm going to be fair to you. If you think I'm unfair, I want to know immediately. You can establish that. Trust is a different animal. And this is time, right? That's right. You know, you can't, you can meet me on day one and say, and they can ask you, Claudia, do you trust Noel? Well, your answer is, I don't know him. Okay. Right. I don't have experience with him. Okay. Because it takes time, right? It takes time. And reliable behavior, meaning keeping your word, doing what you say you're going to do. And that's important. Yeah. It's important. When I would talk to employees, the way I would establish trust in the beginning of a relationship with a CFO, doesn't matter, with a delivery driver, doesn't matter, is when we would have a conversation and it had any commitments in it, right? Any firm commitments. You need me to do X, or I need, I'm asking you to do X or Y. I never said, I never left it open-ended, number one. Okay. I didn't go, hey, so we need this report out, blah, 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 blah. Okay. So we need that by Friday. Okay. Got it. The person typically goes, yep, got it. No, wrong answer, wrong pathway. It should be, so we need this by Friday. Are you comfortable? You can get that accomplished. That's important, right? And then if the person says, well, I can if you do X, Y, and Z for me. Okay, I'm gonna do that. And then you're confident you can have it done by Friday. And they go, sure. I go, okay, so this is huge now. This is huge. Okay, I'm not looking for a commitment here. Give me your word. Give me your word. Because let me tell you what people never violate. Their word. Yeah. They don't, people break promises, they break commitments. But when you ask someone, and I'm not suggesting you walk around asking your kids and your family all day to give you their word about stuff, because that won't work. Even your employees. But when you're in moments where things are really important, it's appropriate. So when I would ask someone to give me their word, they knew I was willing to give them mine. Right. And so we built trust over a period of time. And when employees, and one of the greatest compliments I ever received, Claudia, wasn't from the CEO of UPS, who I worked directly for, wasn't from other presidents when I was an underling. It was from a union president, because our employees were in the union. He wrote a letter to the president of the unit I was in at the time on the West Coast. And I was about to leave a position. And he wrote a letter to the president asking if I could be left in that position. And if they, would they not move me? And this is what he said. And I still have a copy of it to this day. He says, because Noel Massie is fair to his employees, and he keeps his word. And so when people are known to keep their word, right? And when people say, hey, I give you my word, are we going to blah, blah, blah? I go, sure, got that. That's no problem. I'll give you my word. We'll get that done. Then that's how you build trust. You build trust intentionally by keeping your word, by being principled. That's how you build trust.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Now, in your view, what's the most common blind spot new managers have after a promotion? And what can they do to first recognize it and then correct it?
The biggest blind spot that all leaders have, whether they're a new leader or the CEO of a corporation, is not knowing the pulse of their people, not giving them an opportunity to share how they feel about things, right? And it doesn't need to be antagonistic. You know, there's not a day that goes by where you don't hear a story of a CEO being pulled out of their position because they didn't understand what was going on below the surface of the company. You know, they were out doing their CEO thing, being important, acting more important than they really are anyway. And so what was going on under the surface of the organization, they weren't piped into. The way that I would solve for that, to not have that blind spot, is I would do town hall meetings. I would do them once a month with groups of people and say, and it wouldn't be people that had anything to gain with me politically. That's important. And I would say, so how do you think things are going with the employees, right? The warehouse workers, the people that are sitting at the desk doing analytics for you. I don't care what it is, right? The ones selling oranges, doesn't matter. Is to sit down with them and say, hey, this is your time. These are your moments. How do you think the organization is doing? Because when they talk about the organization, they're talking about you. Okay. How do you think the organization is doing? Okay. How could we do things better? How could we, you have a town hall, and if you do it as a matter of course, and it's not situational because something bad happened, then they are very effective to remove blind spots. That's why they're called blind spots. You can't see them. All right. Yeah. You can't see them because you need someone else to show them to you. That's why they're called that. And when leaders look at it simply and they go, I don't want to have blind spots. I need to have eyes in the back of my head. Then you know what you need? People that are doing that for you. They're going to look at the stuff that's going on behind you or under the surface. And the way that you can get to that is by holding a town hall on a quarterly basis, at least, with the team under you as a business owner or a person in an executive capacity.
Yeah, I think it's so important to ask for that feedback. That said, I mean, sometimes you might not like what you hear, right? So how can you managers manage that dual pressure of being respected and liked, because most of them want to be liked, right? Especially when there are tough decisions involved.
Yeah, well, people that think that those are two separate dimensions are mistaken. It's not about liked, right? And it's not about being disliked. It's not. Okay, you're not looking for either one of those things. You're looking to be respected by your team, and you're looking to, in fairness, give respect. Right? There's no gray. You either respect or you disrespect. There's no gray. That's a misnomer, right? If I respect you, I respect you. I treat you with respect at all times. And truth should never be something we hide. We don't want to be hiding truth. We don't want to be hiding facts. We don't want to be hiding things that make people uncomfortable. Uncomfortable means there's discomfort. Who wants to run a disrespectful, uncomfortable business? Who wants to do that, right? I don't think anyone wants to do that. I think they want to run a business where people are passionate, engaged, looking to help that business owner make the best out of their investment, right? So they need to understand that comes from having a relationship with your team that is respect based. We respect each other. We appreciate each other. I have a chapter in my book that highlights this a little bit, because I want the leader and the business owner to think about this. Is listening, and I'll ask you this question, Claudia, is listening well to others, is that a skill or a value?
Ooh, good question. Probably both.
Exactly. Why? Because we don't listen to people we don't value.
Yeah, exactly.
If we're not getting value from someone, we generally don't listen to them. Mm-hmm. Well, as a business owner or executive, the one thing I learned is you don't get to do that. You don't get to involve your emotions about how you feel in a moment when it comes to that part of what a person needs from you. Okay. That you have to rise above your emotions many, many times, right? You can get a phone call that says, hey, we just had blah happen and the machines just broke down. Okay. Flipping out in a tirade and being angry and all that kind of emotional human stuff is not making anything better. Period. I'm not, that's not me being idealistic. It made nothing better. What makes things better is when you respond with leadership, when you respond respecting the moment, realizing that other people are going to be fixing that for you. And so you need to interface with them in a way that values what they have to say in that moment, and at all moments, but values what they have to say intently. And so I put a trait in the book that I used when things got hot, being realistic. And it was, in this moment, I need to stop. I need to pause. I need to listen. Stop, pause, listen. And I can't tell you the amount of times where things are going nuts, phones are going off, people are calling, and someone comes up and goes, hey, Noel, you got a minute? Right? And I could feel the moment. I could feel the moment. They weren't asking me if I wanted a cup of coffee. Okay. There was, and I would stop, turn the phone, put it down. I would pause and I'd look him straight in the eye. What's up? And there were more than a few occasions where what that person had to say to me in that moment saved the job, saved the situation, saved something really big, right? Where I'm the president. They could have been seriously intimidated by that, right? And I knew it. And I understood the power of the position, right? And I didn't want people to be intimidated and withhold information from me, right? And so people that are in leadership positions, and this is generally, at the higher levels, but even it can happen on the front line, need to understand the power that they have as a leader when it comes to being intimidating unintentionally, and how people will withhold information from you because of that, right? So listening is both a skill and a value, and you need to value it enough to provide whoever's speaking to you your attention.
Yeah, that's a great reminder. Is there anything else that you would like to share with our listeners before we wrap up today?
Well, we covered a lot of tracks.
We did.
I don't think I left anything out except, to reinforce investment, is something people understand on a selfish basis, right? They know that if they want to have a good retirement plan, they have to invest to do that. They know if they want to make a good living, they have to invest in their career in some kind of way. But where people get lost is understanding that that's 100% the case in all things. You can't hope to get more than you give, right? And so when my kids would come home and they get a C or a B in a class, I go, so would you give that? I mean, lay that out to me. And, if you're disappointed, if you're happy with that grade, then I guess you gave it enough. But if you're unhappy with any outcome, analyze what you gave it. Obviously you didn't give it what you thought it took. So what was missing in that environment? And so I would just say, if you're not investing time in the people under you, then you're not doing the things necessary to be successful as a business owner or a frontline leader. If you're not investing in yourself and in your team, every day you should be thinking about investment in leadership that produces outcomes, because that's why everyone's at work. You go to work every day. You know why? Because that's how you eat. It's how you pay the bills. It's how you pay the rent. It's how you put your kids through college. That's why you go, right? So that you can at some point have financial freedom in your life. So if you want the best of that, you have to invest. You have to invest.
Yeah, invest into the people and things that are important.
Yes.
So last but not least, where can our listeners find you online if they would like to learn more about you or connect with you?
The easiest way is to go to my website, which is my name, noelmassie.com. One word, noelmassie.com. I'm also on LinkedIn. I get a lot of communication there on LinkedIn. And my book currently, Congrats, You've Been Promoted, can be found on Amazon or Barnes & Noble's website. It was published by Simon & Schuster.
Perfect. Noel, thank you so much for sharing all those tips and insights with us today. It's been really great talking with you.
Likewise, Claudia, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And for everyone listening, I'll post the link to the book in the show notes as well. So Noel, keep up the great work and take care, and talk to you soon.
Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening to the Wired for Success podcast. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you did, please take a sec to rate and review my show or share it with a friend. That way you can support the show and help me reach and support other entrepreneurs like yourself as well. If you would like my help to figure out how you can go from overwhelmed and overworked hustler to empowered and confident leader, check out my website at www.wiredforsuccess.solutions and book a free 20-minute strategy session with me. Can't wait to help you get wired for success. Until next time, take care. Bye.